word that I would summarize is sustainability. Because again, I've seen some examples in the past where investors and operators have been keen to see very early returns because it's an expensive business setting up a new venture. But I think it's important to see the opportunity in the long run. Be prepared perhaps to sacrifice some of that short-term profitability to make sure that there is a robust operation in place, whatever that means in that particular environment, that the technology deployed can actually work in all of the scenarios within that one territory. Because again, what may be true in an urban environment may well not be true perhaps in an outlying village situation, for example. So that sustainability principle, I think, should underline any approach to starting a new gaming or lottery venture, in Africa. So I think those are the challenges that I see, certainly.
So thanks, Robin. Very important, knowledge that you shared. And so, Neil, can you also add to, Robin, that what could be the major challenges to tap this potential?
Sure, thanks, Sajid. I think Robin summed it up pretty eloquently across the board in terms of the general factors that you face. I'm going to tackle it from a slightly different perspective. Most new operators coming into Africa face the usual suspects, and that is, how do I raise capital for Africa? How do I move my Forex around if I'm an international investor? Because there's always Forex challenges. And I think another is the perception with what we call the Kenya factor. How does the license change while I'm busy operating it, and how does that affect me? How secure is my license? But I think the part I want to really touch on, and I think is forward-looking for our industry in particular, that it's going to start to become really tougher to do business in Africa. I think the regulations are changing. I think regulators are coming together. I think the banking sector is also tightening up on its regulation. And I think one of the things, for example, that you're going to see in this industry moving forward is we all go to market with online and omni-channel approaches. I think you're going to start to see a centralized register that's going to become required, whether you're online or whether you're offline, where they're going to want to put in caps, limits, self-exclusion. And I think it's going to change the way that we do our business a little bit, especially in our stores, because vetting someone online is easy. Vetting someone in a shop is a completely different scenario. So I think one must be conscious that it's a good thing that regulations are tightening up, but it's going to make our job a lot harder moving forward over the next couple of years.
Thanks, Nate. So actually, that's seeds the second question. So Robin talked about 4.2 billion, trillion dollars as the potential GDP of Africa, and by going by World Lottery standards, compendium indicates 0.5% to 1% of the GDP could be in lottery and gaming. So that's a huge potential. And Neil talked about that it's becoming increasingly difficult. That how the regulation is turning out to be, and how things need to be seen omni-channel perspective, but also digging down into each channel. Other than that, definitely currency devaluation, geopolitical issues that Robin talked us about, the digital divide, which is also there. Now, my question is to Cameron: how we can, any business owner can manage such complexities and see it from the diverse landscape of 54 countries. Over to you, Cameron.
I think Neil and Robin were right in what they said about what the challenges are. And I think what is very important to learn is that those local partnerships guide you through those events. Having a trusted partner on the ground that understands the nuances, the cultural sensitivities, the risk that you are facing, and then the ability to build on that local partnership into different elements like skills development, taking it into the local hubs, investing into your digital infrastructure, and the knowledge that the effect that you have in the ecosystem that you live in. I think that's important, and part of that growth obviously is understanding, and it feels weird that outside of Africa, digital money and like mobile money isn't very well known. It's not consumed. It's not used very often. But yet Bitcoin and all those have a footprint. So understanding what the payment mechanisms is to assist you in that growth, I think those are important elements. And then obviously your stakeholders having an open discussion with government, with the NGOs, the boards, all of that becomes very, very important to sustain and build that longer term foundation. Like you said, it's not a situation of profitability after year 1 or 2. You'll need to invest in that relationships all across your touch points.
Thanks, Cameron. So you touched upon a very important thing that, despite these complexities and challenges, there are certain things that, Africa had been at the forefront of propagation, like mobile money and the ease of payment. And Purity happens to be based out of Kenya, and Kenya has been kind of a birthplace for mobile money in Africa. So, Purity, let's understand, how we can definitely manage the complexities under, and different countries have different challenges. And over to you, just give us an insight. Purity.
The microphone.
Yeah, you're audible now.
No. Yeah, so as I was saying, for the growth of the food betting industry in the Africa, I'd say we need to get the presence of the online and mobile apps, because as you've said, Kenya is known to be so developed when it comes to mobile apps, and that is what we usually use most, and that has really helped in growth of the industry, and that's why everyone will be eyeing on the Kenyan market. So the service is easily available anywhere, whereby the players are well conversant with the applications and mobile money, and also access of the service. Easily access of the service has made it much easier. Another aspect that maybe needs to be considered for other African markets, it's the personalization and data analytics, whereby as an operator, one is supposed to know the trends and the customer preference, so that you can be able to know their behavior and their trends, and you can be able to personalize their promotions in case maybe you're having promotions, or enhance the customer engagement and satisfaction. That is the most important key. And another thing is the regulation and responsible gambling measures. This is something that any investor or any person who is eyeing for Africa should always put it into consideration, because some measures on safety some safety measures for the well-being of the players is very key. And once we've had that in place in any platform that you want to implement, may it be bookmaking, may it be casino or lottery, it will earn trust with your players to your platform. Everyone will want somewhere they are safe in case maybe they want to like exclude themselves for the addiction, then it is easily accessible for them. So regulation on the responsible gaming, that is very key. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Purity. My next question is to Neil. So, the sports betting industry and bookmaking is actually booming in Africa, and it's all across Africa. Most of the countries have it, and there's a solid growth that they have posted. And but what does it mean for other segments like lottery, casino, other skill games? Are they catching up with it? How to make sure that the entire industry grows? Could there be some technological innovation or strategies? What do you, Neil?
Sure. I think, sports betting has certainly shown us the way. The introduction of iGaming, the acceleration of their growth has just been phenomenal. And I think what's happened, though, is the lines have started to become a little bit grayed in terms of what's a lottery product and what's a sports betting bookmaker product. And I think as we start to move along in the near future now, because of the very different nature of engagements, lotteries use GR as a taxation method, sports betting bookmakers use GGR as a taxation method. Lotteries are going to have to start to up their game. And what's going to happen is you're going to start to see a convergence of products. And that's that the products that are available in the lottery are going to start to become available in bookmakers. And the products that are available in the bookmakers are going to become available in the lottery. And while the bookmakers are years ahead, they're light years ahead in terms of iGaming and the way they take their products to market, lotteries have physical distribution networks, which can work to their advantage. So I think it's going to be interesting as the lottery tries to play catch up now. It has to start to bring in some of those rapid draw games, those instant win games, and everything that it needs to do to be competitive in that market, because the consumer doesn't care. He wants value for money. He wants entertainment. He wants to go where he wants to go. He doesn't care if he's buying a fixed odds lottery bet or he's buying a participation in a national lottery. It's his choice. And the only way to compete is by bringing that together. So I think lotteries are going to start to really have to leverage their retail infrastructure. How do I take this expanded product growth network and start to take it to the people, especially where we know that internet is a challenge and people don't necessarily have the ability of iGaming. So I think the clean lines we all used to operate in 10 years ago are starting to fade now. I think bookmakers and lotteries are starting to become one and the same to a degree. You've got jackpot insured bookmakers, and I think that's the way it's going to be moving forward in the near future. And I think that's going to be the competitive space we're all going to have to play in.
Thanks, Neil. So what are your views, Cameron, on lottery and casino playing catch up with sports betting industry?
I think Neil said very well when he said the lines are becoming blurred. But I don't think it's the lines that are getting blurred. It is that the punter is now looking for an entertainment vehicle. So whether it is a spin of a wheel, whether it's a lotto, whether it's a bet, even though the psychology of each is very different, I think when you take innovation, you take different new products, and you allow the punter to have an extended entertainment, whether it's through gamification, whether it's through normal leaderboards or loyalty programs, all these things have a longer lasting effect on the play. So I think with innovation, it's the new types of games that lottery can offer. It's a continuation game that can be offered. So it's just about how you approach it and not just offer the black and white anymore.
Thanks, Cameron. Okay, my next question is to Robin. The legislative and regulatory environment, is a bit unpredictable. The timings are unpredictable. What gets drafted is unpredictable. So, what are your take on the changing local laws, the process of acquiring the licenses? And because it varies from country to country, but then there are 2 or 3 separate types of templates that the governments are adopting. Over to you, Robin.
Yes, I mean, I term this market management. It's a phrase that I use, and I think it's a responsibility that sits very firmly with the government of any given territory. It's really important for that government to have a clear idea of the market structure that they envisage going forward. And I think what has been seen in the past is a lack of clarity in that market management space. And for example, that's led in certain territories to, for example, there being so many licenses on offer in a particular territory, that actually that points, for me, that points to a sort of a suboptimal situation of market structure and market governance, where, there are so many licenses in the marketplace, be they sports betting, igaming, or indeed lotteries, it becomes much more difficult to compete profitably in that marketplace because everything's being spread so thin. So margins are depressed, cost of acquisition goes up, and it's tough to make a profit. So I would certainly say, if you're looking at a territory that already has lots and lots of licenses, be a bit wary of that for that reason. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got territories that want to run well-organized license competitions, and I think whilst they can be very arduous, very time and resource intensive to actually put together bids. We were talking just before the call about what's happening in South Africa right now. That is a big competition. But that does rather point to a more organized market management situation. And of course, the rewards are great if the license is for a lengthy period of time. So I think it's important for any would-be investor or operator to look at that situation, and take a view on the degree of ease or not. And it's fine to have multiple licenses. Don't misunderstand me when it comes to sports betting and igaming, but there is a limit to that, and it's got to be applied to the market. Lotteries, I think, is different. I think lotteries perform much better when they're more at the monopolistic end of the spectrum. They have to be protected in that sense, I think. They have a broader target profile, of course, than sports betting and igaming, and therefore, the way that it's offered has to be different. And so, if governments, as somebody mentioned on the call, how things have changed mid-license, in certain places, that is a problem if that happens, because it means the business model has not been set up to accommodate any of those changes. So how does one keep a view on what is sort of coming down the track, as it were? So I always advocate that new ventures, particularly, are well advised to have a very capable government relations unit, where that's not lobbying, but it's having interactions with the right people in government at a very credible level, where there is an understanding of the thinking currently in government, and also where it is headed. What are the issues in government that could directly affect that operator, and particularly taxation levels, introduction of VAT on sales, whatever it might be. These are pitfalls for any industry, for any player in the industry, and it's important, therefore, to have a good sense on the pulse of what government thinking is. And so that's the best that an operator can do, I think, to insulate themselves in terms of the local changing political scene and what that means for licensing and legislation in the gambling world.
Thanks, Robin. So yeah, too many licenses is a problem of hyper competition, and monopoly is good for lottery, but may not be for other forms of gaming. Now, the same question goes to Ruslan. Your Lotto Afro did a very smart thing, that you got a license from African Olympic Association, and so beyond Namibia, how are you seeing getting into various regulatory environment? Over to you, Ruslan.
Yes, hello. Robin said it a lot. It's very difficult to make some supplement, but there is some kind of how to say mismatch between the licenses. Okay, from one side we have the government requirement and licenses, especially for Namibia. The situation still, like Robin say, lack of mm, lack of communication between the institution, between themselves, like there is some kind of competition between the institution, the proper institutions. We are only based in Namibia because, as you know, politically relatively stable, uh, in a level of security, very peaceful country. Our studios is here. We are not targeting so much the Namibian market. Of course, we care about it, but in a population even not, they are even not 3 million people. They play a lot, but population still be in a low level compared to the other African countries. We, Lotto Afro, we are operating with the Curacao international license. So in the proper Namibia, until 31st of this month, there is no specific license for lottery or for scratch gaming. It will be, and probably this period will be extended. The government is trying to find the best rates, how to evaluate how much a license for a lottery can be, or for scratch gaming, or online or offline. For personally, for me, our, let's say, risk is we want to operate in the whole continent, that it's not prohibited like Islamic countries and others. But I'm sure that certain countries will take measures to restrict the advertise and the marketing. And you know that in our business, this is the most important thing. Other, let's say, funny thing is not so funny, because the Curacao license allows us to operate in Africa and abroad. But what about the payment providers? The biggest payment providers, they're not accepting the Curacao license, and we enter in conflict. We have to be, like Sir Robin says, very flexible to find the way to integrate various payment providers, exactly because of the legislation. In Namibia, we are targeting the card betting by card betting players, but Kenya is mobile money. You know, Mr. Sujit, that Skill Rock recently helped us to integrate the Kenyan mobile money payment provider Bionic. So flexibility and variety of payment providers, payment gateways. And like Mr. Robin, I repeat his words. Yes, it's good to have many licenses, but not enter so deeply in this in order to make profit.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruslan. Okay, now my next question is to Purity. The digital era is, very much there. People are playing games all across Africa on their mobile phone, and the adoption is increasing. But still, the share of digital gaming is very low, right? Compared to what people are queuing up in various shops everywhere. You see, be it Kenya, be it Nigeria, be it DRC, every country you see, people play a lot in the betting shops rather than on their mobile phone. So the percentage share of digital gaming is low compared to other parts of the world, say in Europe. So how, do you see the online habit of players can be, is that an issue? How do you attract players? How do you attract players into the digital channel? Over to you, Purity. Purity, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I think I'm audible.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you. The first approach, because the digital era is upon us and all the players in Africa. So that is something we cannot deny. And we can see Africa is really transforming digitally. And I would say the first approach for the players or for the operators is the mobile approach, because mobile phone is the primary mode of internet access in Africa. And to ensure that the platform are mobile friendly and responsive to all the players, that is very key because of the areas which are have limited connectivity of the internet. The next thing is we need to consider the economic condition in the African markets, because we come and find that we have platforms which are there, yes, and they are mobile friendly and user friendly to our players. But then again, when it comes to pricing, we have to consider that it has to be localized and it has to match the localization of the players. Because if we'll do the pricing to be a bit higher and unaffordable to our players, then we'll not be having much access to even the down to earth players that we use for them for lottery and gambling. And as we know, lottery it has penetrated so fast in the African market recently, as we can check on the statistics, because it is a fast game. Like within few minutes, the customers can be able to stake on whatever game they want to play. And then within next minutes, they're able to cash out their money. So we should consider the pricing. And that is how it has been competitive when I compare to the Kenyan market. It has become very competitive. You'll find that the pricing have even gone lower. Even the regulators, it reached to a point sometime last year, they had to adjust the regulation on the pricing for the platform or for the games that we offer online. That is for both sports, lottery, casino games, which is something that also any investor who is coming to the African market should consider that most. And also creating awareness and educating the players, because most of them are unfamiliar with the lottery games and the casinos. So it has taken us operators some time to make sure that we are educating our players now and then. Every time we are using our customer support on the feedback that we get, we use them to make sure that they educate the customers, and also making sure that we do the community engagement. Because with the community engagement, you're able to get the real-time feedback and you're able to have the real-time experience the player will experience on your platform, on all the products that you're offering. Is it a lottery? Will it be casino, live casino, and all that? So these are the things that each and every industry stakeholder should always consider when keeping an eye or putting an eye to the African market.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question is to Ruslan, that there are parts of Africa where there's a very low smartphone penetration and even the internet availability, internet affordability also. Those things do impact lotteries. So how are you planning to take care of this challenge of low smartphone penetration, internet availability, etc.? Over to you, Ruslan.
Yes, thank you. I would refer as what I have seen with my proper eyes in my country. I'm coming from Bulgaria, and Bulgaria is very good digitalized, but believe me, 7, 8 years ago, it was not like that. And uh, players and people were looking about the online, not only gambling, online things. They were like doubting if it really worked. So the way that the lottery game makes a great success in my country can be applied in Africa. With we, as I told, we have a live show drawing two times a week. So in continuation of these live shows, we would like to show to the audience that yes, there are players that are winning, and the best thing is to show these winners winning even material prizes, not only money, like someone winning car or technical devices or something, but in the form of live shows that can be seen in our platform live, or we are cooperating with the NBC that is available in most of the African countries, and I think this is the way. Exactly for the lottery. I'm speaking for the lottery to to make people believe that they can click on the screen of the smartphones or on the computers, and they can really win. We have to show them the winners. This is my opinion, in the form of
Thanks.
live show.
Thanks. So, Robin, of course, Ruslan talked about educating, but do you think, technologies like ussd, which is very rudimentary, but very popular in India, across Africa, for using banking, for using mobile services, can that be used, or what is your advice, Robin?
Yeah, well, I think technology has a big part to play, and I think one of the big challenges with African territories right now is you do have this range of, there's a community using smartphones. They're probably storing their data in the cloud, etc. But at the other end, you have got cash-based society, paper-based activities going on, and so from a technology perspective, I think it's really important that the central system can accommodate those different access points, whether it's retail, whether it's kiosks, or whether it's via smartphone, or in fact, ussd. When I worked in Uganda a few years ago, I was told that the mobile money markets there were moving 750 million US dollars every month around the country, which was a figure that I found astonishing, but true nonetheless. And so it really brought it home to me just how, again, adaptive systems have to be in order to maximize access, whatever environment those players are in. And I think lotteries have the advantage that they can be delivered both physically and in digital formats. And so it should be thought of as, use all of those different characteristics in order to make the lottery venture anyway as inclusive as possible. Clearly, that's not the same with igaming. You can't take advantage of that. Sports betting, you can, but it gets very clunky with bet slips, etc. It gets expensive to, resupply all of those consumables and ship them around the country. That's difficult. So again, the business model has to take into account the need to be flexible. And I just want to pick up on the point that Ruslan made about trust. And in the sustainability question, I think Purity also mentioned this. It's important that players understand the activity that they're getting into, and they trust it and they believe that they can win. So I think mobile network operators have done a lot of damage, particularly in Eastern Africa, when they've run sort of lottery promotions to bring on board mobile phone subscribers, and it's not been an achievable lottery, and that's done damage. So lotteries particularly have to be achievable and be seen to be that and trustworthy. So I definitely reflect what my fellow panel members have said there. And I think that, you know, there's plenty of scope as the continent moves forward, as internet provision gets better, you know, then well placed, I think, all three of the segments to take advantage of that if it's done in a patient way.
Thanks, Robin. So my next question is to Cameron. It's a pretty rapidly changing industry of ours, and you know, we all know that how important it is to adopt to the latest things and stay ahead. Of course, the mobile phone, definitely mobile gaming had been quite disruptive, and the adoption in Africa had been phenomenally good. But you know, what are the other disruptions that you feel that could be there, which could shape the lottery and gaming industry, specifically in Africa? Over to you, Cameron.
Yeah, and like you said, it starts with the mobile first, because that's what is the key to all of this. Disruption happens so quickly, we don't even have to talk or have a session about AI because it's been done ad nauseum. But whether it is on identifying or writing content or all the elements that it touches, and I think we haven't seen the beginning of what the real impact of something like AI has on the industry. The other bit obviously is cryptocurrencies and blockchain, what that means, how that impacts on the actual lottery, and again, speaking to the believability, the trust, the transparency that offers. And then technologies, we said that you have scenarios where people have no access to data or very low data availability. But I think things like augmented reality in the right scenario could be a significant disruptor for lottery. The other bit then, going from this, and we've said it so many times, that legislation and regulation is the disruptor all the time. And whether it's regional, whether it's continental frameworks, where they're working from, I think all of these elements are important to keep an eye on, and keep doing your research and keep your finger on the pulse for these small nuances that come up in the different regions and how they impact on and have the ability to disrupt your lottery business. I think the availability of digital payment methods, and there's a whole range of other elements, but I think most of it has been covered in what we've said so far today.
Thanks, Cameron. Neil, would you like to add to what AI, blockchain, and other things could mean, and could they disrupt the African gaming landscape? Over to you, Neil.
Yeah, I think Cameron summed it up quite nicely. I think what we've also got to be conscious of in terms of our plans, our roadmaps for Africa. Yes, ussd, it's great for simple, delivered, it's internet agnostic, it gives you ubiquity, it goes fast, but it also comes with the cost of saying I need a ussd aggregator to bring all the telcos together. I think retail is what retail is. It's tried, it tested, it works, it's the way to move it in, and there's going to be very little innovation that comes from that other than extending your footprint. I think the way forward is digital, but I think we need to take a step back in terms of that. We need to turn around and say there's accessibility feature versus smartphones. There's also cost, and cost is a major factor. And what many operators like to do is they like to create this rich digital content that can be delivered out, that's exciting and appeals to players. Generation Z is our future betters. That's where we're going to get our business from. But we have to find the middle ground. And I know it's not quite disruption, it's a bit of logical sense, but we have to simplify our product offering, keeping it attractive still, keeping it instant, taking into account that those who do migrate to smartphones still have to deal with this thing called the cost of data. So you get a rapid urbanization in the metropolitan areas where the infrastructure is better and people have more smartphones. But your ubiquitous base is going to come from the rest of the countries as well. We have to moderate our growth to deliver applicable and cost-effective products now in order to make sure that we extend our footprint. Otherwise, we come up with these fantastic, so visually appealing products that nobody can afford to download and play with on their phones.
Thanks, Nate. So my next question is to Purity. So we always talk about omni-channel and omni-gaming approach. Definitely, it has to be seen in the localized context, and there are a lot of technologies, there are a lot of trends that are available. But we have to make it very simple for the players, right? Whether they would like to use the same wallet for playing on a mobile phone, or can they go to a shop and still use the same account? Can they top it up, from a shop? So over to you, Purity. I mean, what are your thoughts on omni-channel, omni-gaming? Can't hear you, Purity. Okay, I pass on the question to Ruslan. Ruslan?
Sorry. Yeah, can you repeat the question, please, Mr. Sujit?
Okay, the question is about omni-channel, omni-gaming, right? So meaning that any game or any can be played on any channel, be it on a mobile phone, be it on in the shop. Okay.
I was talking about this diversity of deposit methods. Very, very important theme for Africa, because as we all agree, the players are used to visit shops. We have to offer them the most easiest way to play, to deposit from shop, providing simple devices to use, this mobile money depositing. Every channel is welcome, like through social media, through every kind of advertise, in order to promote our online challenge.
Thanks. So attendees, I see all of you are there, and though we have almost crossed 1 hour, but I would request that if you can extend it by another 10-15 minutes. We have a very nice short video clip to show you some practicality, and also a couple of other questions. So this video is all about, this short video is all about, digital transformation. Whenever we talk about, involves that, there is a very lengthy registration process of players. There's a very difficult payment method. Can you not have, like, say for a moment, today you have a player, he walks into to a shop, he just buys a ticket, right? He doesn't need to register, he doesn't need to expose his credit card or anything. Can we make something as simple as that? So this video is about simplifying things, encouraging casual gameplay. So this new product is from Skill Rock. Skill team, if you can just play this short video, please. Thanks for the video, Skill team. So this was all about, Africa-inspired small product, which actually helps any organization doing sportsbook, online casino, or lottery and shops, as well as digital. My next question is to Neil. Privatization of national lotteries. We just talked about South African National Lottery bid coming up. So this is a good opportunity for investors looking for entering into the African market. So, what's your opinion about the process of privatization of lotteries in Africa? So, is it going in the right direction? What are your views, please, Neil?
Yeah, I think there's two approaches to the privatization. It's the territory needs to dictate where it is from the product portfolio. And I'll give an example of West Africa. West Africa, their lottery products they take to market are 590. There's very little that differentiates that game. There are multiple operators on the ground, and that's just about accessibility and ease. But as a general accepted rule, lotteries are driven by the business. They're driven by their jackpots. And monopolies are good. And I think Robin mentioned it earlier when he said monopolies are good as long as you're afforded the correct protection that is necessary to operate in that environment. I'm all for privatization. We've certainly seen it in East Africa lately. There's been a couple of tenders run in East Africa where they have put out proper RFPs for proper regulations and proper submissions to do it. But privatization also comes with a cost. And that cost to the potential operator comes in terms of your capital outlay, your performance bonds, your guarantees that you have to put into place. That's offset by the length of license. Privatized lotteries should look at a significant license so that you can really invest properly in the country. You can do it at a tempo that makes sense. You're not on a scramble for a 3 to 5 year license to say, how do I maximize my returns and make it work? So I think if it's done properly, it's afforded to proper operators who go through a proper stringent process, then privatization can only be the benefit for that lottery industry in the country that you take it to.
Thanks. Robin, you have some thoughts to add to this?
Yes, I think Neil summed it up very well indeed in terms of the need for good discipline, structure, deep pockets, the ability to sustain a bid for privatization. But at the general level, I believe privatization is a good thing. I think it can be applied on the African continent more than it has been already. And And I think the key factor there is that compared to sort of, let's say, a government-owned unit that is running a lottery, a privatized lottery has every incentive to succeed. And so they understand, they will probably be more understanding of best practices that are done internationally. They understand, to Purity's point about responsible gaming principles and the need to protect players. And so what it does is a privatized lottery brings benefits to society in the way that all lotteries should. You know, the business model is set up very carefully. There is the stringent competition in order to land the license in the first place. And what that does is that gives investors and the operators the confidence that for that period of the license, and whether that's 7 years or 10 years, that they can plan that business over that period of time, and therefore they can invest in what I mentioned earlier, the robust operations, but also to make sure that the product mix is right and responsible gaming principles are employed from day one. And then there's a brand building process that just drives that trust dynamic. And if you can get all of those things in place, a privatized lottery, I think, will optimize all of those things more so than just a straight government run lottery, who have sort of a slightly different set of priorities. So like Neil, I'm all for privatized lotteries. And I think the careful part is that a government must be realistic about what it can price a privatization at. And that's always a big question every time privatization comes up.
That's right. Thanks, Robin. So my next and last question on this panel is to Cameron. So, you know, the market is huge in Africa, and some of the countries, the market is mind-boggling, and but also, you know, some of the lottery operators or betting operators, sports books, they have become huge, right? And their market share is so dominant that any new operator, any new licensee is not able to survive. Okay, so it happened in Nigeria, it happened in DRC, it happened in many markets, and you know, this is going to deter the new operators. I mean, they can get a license, but how do they stand against this dominant, you know, monopolistic operator? So how do you ensure level playing field under these situations? Over to you, Cameron.
Yeah, I think Robin mentioned it earlier during our call that it is probably one of your biggest challenges in terms of making sure that the right environment is created in the framework by the government, and they have a clear vision of what they want to achieve in their market. That makes sure that the right regulations is written. They need to ensure that they are friendly towards foreign direct investment, needs to make sure that there is sufficient monitoring, and then from there grow, like I previously said, grow the small SMEs around you, provide the right tax incentives. So those type of things would start to level the playing field, and then it's a process, continuous monitoring, continuous updates, and then keeping the right kind of relationships between the private and the government in check through mechanisms that is transparent. I think only then you could have that field that works for everybody. But when I say work for everybody, I mean in the sense that it creates the right competition or the right environment for that lottery to succeed.
Thanks. There's a very interesting question from the attendees. So Tassos posed a question. Recent developments in Tanzania tender and growth prospect for the Tanzanian market. You know, what is our view on that? Robin, if you can take up that question.
Developments in the Tanzanian market.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yes, I think it's been a difficult journey so far up until recently for that marketplace. And And I think that the government have been recognizing that perhaps they've made some mistakes in the past about the way that they've tried to set up their lottery. I think they're taking a much more contemporaneous approach now with a more solid RFP, with the Gaming Board of Tanzania running that. We are yet to see the outcome of that process, but I think the infrastructure in Tanzania is such that I think there can be a very positive development in that marketplace. And I think a lot will depend upon the extent to which the government want to drive this approach of, getting a very credible set of operators bidding for the marketplace, which will put it into a good place going forwards. So I think the right moves are being made, but it's yet to be sort of a conclusive situation.
Question myself. So the question is about how is the new technology impacting the market, like AI, the chat GPT? Is our industry, lottery and gaming industry, thinking on these lines? It does affect, of course. Lottery and gaming industry is an early adopter of all the latest technologies, right? So definitely AI is deployed in a big way in terms of chatbots to analytics to even chat GPT within Skillrock we are using for coding purpose also. So therefore definitely there is a huge adoption, not only at the player side of it, but at the back end of it. And there could be a major disruptive thing coming up, with maybe metaverse. Okay, so those things are pretty early at this stage, but adoption of blockchain, adoption of crypto is already very heavy. Yes, lottery and gaming industry are early adopter of technology. Now the next question, is from Edwin. I'll pose that question to Neil. So how the question is all about, African people don't have official IDs. So how does it impact the KYC, AML, and responsible gaming?
Yeah. So I think I'm going to echo something that Cameron said a lot earlier in this as well, and that's is find out what is accepted within the local country that you're dealing with. We have literally gone as far as, it's your passport, your drivers, your national IDs, where there isn't a national ID. In some countries, we've actually gone and get a signed statement from the chief, claiming that the person is who they are to do. They go to the police stations and they get sworn affidavits in terms of where they are. The banks will guide you on this in the local countries. They'll understand what their local FICA requirements are and how to make it work. We can't invent IDs because we want to bring these people into the gaming platforms to be able to play with them. So we have to work within the ambit of what's locally accepted. Engage with a good audit company like Ernst & Young or PwC. They'll advise you what works in those countries that you're going into. Engage with the banks in those countries. But also, as long as you're compliant locally and you meet all of those requirements, you have to make it work. But we cannot run these online verification systems in some parts of Africa like we do in others, because the infrastructure simply isn't there to be able to do it. So it's a little bit of a combination of both that you've got to take to market if you want to make those inroads into those channels and populations.
Thanks, Neil. The next question is from Ernest. Essentially, the question is about gaming aggregators. So game aggregators, how that can be useful in Africa. If you can just highlight on that, Cameron.
So we spoke about innovation and how you utilize different methods in your product. to broaden the footprint. And I think this is one of those opportunities where you narrow the gap between the lotto's existence, its market that it's in, and the reach to the punter that places that bet, or the player wherever he might be, whether he's in a shop, whether it's in a rural village somewhere, and he has got the ability to touch on that lotto because it's got a very specific meaning to him. There's something that attracts him to that specific lotto, how it's structured, or the group of products that is offered in that. So definitely a space for aggregation from where I sit.
Thanks. The next question again is from Tasos. I'll pose that to Robin. The question is about pre-printed lottery tickets versus lottery tickets printed by a terminal. This can be seen both in terms of traditional lottery as well as scratch cards. So what are your views in terms of receptibility in the African market?
Well, I think it comes back to the access question, doesn't it? And I think there is a place for what we used to call passive lotteries, pre-printed, instant games, as well as those generated online by terminals and indeed played digitally. That's the beauty of the African market, I think, today, is that there's space for all of those in order to make any gaming operation that can work physically as well as digitally, makes it as inclusive as possible. And lottery is the most ubiquitous of those product groups. It may not be the most successful right today in the African markets, but it is definitely the most ubiquitous. It appeals to the widest target audience. I mean, the classic lottery target audience should mirror the profile of the population, the adult population as a whole, right? And so you need to make it accessible to all of those parties. And I think as long as the technology employed can actually deliver on all of those things, they don't have to be all in the same game. A passive lottery can be a separate standalone game that is managed in a different way than any online game that's run through the retail terminals, and indeed scratch cards. They all have different business model implications. If you've got paperware to deal with, you've got logistics to deal with, and you have to build that in. It might well also be that you've got to look at prize payout levels in order to accommodate those different cost structures. So my view is there's a place for all of those types, and they will be moving forward even as we move through to more digital. But it's a transition process that's going to take a long time, and therefore one should do one's best to make all of those formats available until such times as the markets themselves choose not to go with them anymore. There will come a time, presumably, that passive lotteries aren't so popular anymore. But we're not there today. I think it's important to be inclusive and that they all have a role to play.
Thanks, Robin. The next question is from Ephraim. I would like to answer that. So the question is about to what extent regulated in the KYC had hindrance in player acquisition in African markets. So to answer that, the KYC question, of course, it's in the context of the license that an operator owns. Vary country to country. In some countries, it's a very evolved, very well-defined, specified, and in other cases, like say for a moment, you're targeting the African continent with a license, from Curaçao with a payment gateway, which is very flexible. Payment processor being very flexible, you have you land into a very different KYC regime. So yes, KYC, our experience had in the African market is that when you are registering a player, you can always go for two-step registration process. In the first step, definitely you validate the mobile phone or email ID, at least some ID. And in the second step, definitely you can do a very expensive KYC with certain IDs being taken, etc. That way, you get over the psychological barrier. You onboard the player, but at the same time, you don't risk yourself non-complying to KYC norms. But this again will depend upon country to country and various regulations. So that's kind of my answer to this question. And another question is there from Joshai, and is talking about withholding tax on winnings, and because this is something that has very recently come up in multiple countries where they're talking about withholding tax, and implementing that is a bit of a challenge. I'm posing this question to Cameron: how to deal with these things, which are coming up, even in some cases, retrospective basis.
Yeah, I'll use the example of the Kenyan market, where currently there's a 20% withholding tax on any winning, and then interpreted on the bet, on the computer bet, or on the casino spin, on every spin of the wheel. So what gets hurt is the actual player. He doesn't have the ability to play through as many times as he would have. The beneficiary is the government in terms of the taxation, and hopefully that is used well. But if you are an operator that is in that market, it is for you to adopt, ensure compliance, number one, with the taxation, to ensure that you apply it correctly. But then it's the player that has a bigger tax burden on him in terms of his gameplay. So it's collection on behalf of the revenue authority and distributing it to them, but it definitely does lower the turnover that is available in if you're gonna tax it at, for example, 20%. But that's the environment that they're in, and again, we spoke earlier about having the relationship with the government, explaining to them and then showing them what impact it has on the environment, and hopefully reach a medium where both the government and the revenue authorities and the operators have a space in which they can provide the entertainment and the bets, which makes sense, or a rate that makes sense.
Thanks a lot. So with that, definitely, I think we have overshot the timing, and a few attendees have left now. So we I would like to say thank you to all the panelists, all the attendees. It has been a wonderful session, and we look forward to the next webinar that will be published very soon. And all these, the webinar video will be published on the websites of Skill Rock, as well as other, panelist, websites. So please, have a look at them. And once again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.